The Truth Pop Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to another episode of the Truth Pop Podcast. My name is Jake.
I'm Cathy.
And we are a Catholic married couple helping you to live out your faith in modern day culture. You can just call us Cake. It's our couple name. And sometimes it can be real suffering to choose to pass up the cake and to choose to eat the kale, right? I mean, like sometimes in life, maybe Cathy, we believe this false presumption that like life should be perfectly happy and that any sort of suffering is bad, that we should just completely run away from it as much as possible.
I know I fall into that all the time. And I forget that this world is very imperfect. We live in a fallen world and we're not in heaven yet.
You know, we've been talking about on one of our past episodes of the Truth Pop podcast how to approach prayer when life doesn't make sense. In one of our past episodes, Cathy, just a brief recap, we talked about how when we're asking God to answer our prayer and he's not, it seems like he is silent. What do we do with that? How do we respond? And one of the takeaways is that sometimes the answer to prayer is not what we expect.
Yeah. Sometimes Jesus wants to give himself over the thing that we're asking for.
And we come to know Jesus on a much deeper level through that trial that you might be going through. And Jesus has so much love for you. Like his heart burns in love with you. But somewhere along the line, we got this idea that because God loves us infinitely, that everything we ask for, he's going to give us in the timeline we want. Yeah. And maybe it's brought us to where we're at in our culture right now, Cathy, where you notice that did a little bit of like a thought social experiment where I've noticed how many times people will say, oh, instead of praying for something, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that I'll get it. Right. This cultural phenomenon. I've noticed people saying that like, oh, yep, cross my fingers, hope I get the job. And I get it. Like, that's not to rag on anybody. That's just a common phrase, right? But maybe there's a deeper element behind it. I noticed, you know, as I was like searching for some pictures to use in a post on a photo website, and I searched people praying. And the majority, keep in mind, I said praying. I said the word praying, but the majority of pictures that came up in the search box had people crossing their fingers.
Yeah.
There was only a few that actually had their hands lifted towards heaven. But one thing I noticed, and granted, these are actors in the picture, they're not actually nervous. But it dawned on me that the people who were crossing their fingers in these pictures actually looked more nervous than the people who were actually praying with praying hands.
Yeah.
Take that as you will. But babe, does it say something about how we put so much quote unquote faith in the universe and not faith in God?
Right. Yeah. That kind of reminds me of the idea of manifesting, how people will say, well, I'll just put it out into the universe and then the universe will make it come true. And that's really taking God out of the picture when you don't bring it to God and look at it through the lens of what does God want? What is his will? Rather than, you know, just saying, oh, well, I want it to come true. Because we do know that we're powerless. Like when it comes to certain things, we can't control everything. And I think manifesting accepts that and realizes that. But it's kind of like a godless way of praying.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on the money there. Even the custom of crossing your fingers, you did a little research into that and found that it's not completely devoid of Christian element.
Yeah, I mean, part of it does come from a Christian tradition of two people putting their finger over each other, like to symbolize the cross. And then eventually it just became just one hand, like one person crossing their fingers. So it does come from that, but it also comes from different pagan traditions of trying to invoke multiple spirits and
which is dangerous.
Right. Now it's just kind of used as like a way to hope for something.
Well, I think that if you're looking at it from a literal sense, I think it's probably not the best thing to do because well, what's the intention about crossing your fingers? It's like, oh, I hope I'm lucky, right?
Yeah,
Saying, I hope
right.
I get what I want. And it's not wrong to ask God for what you want, but if you're
Yeah.
asking the universe and saying, I believe in kind of like a deist God, like the idea of that God has removed himself from human nature, that
Yeah.
he's just off in the distance, like he's this kind of angry guy just waiting to strike us down, but not really interested in our day-to-day problems. Like, I think our culture really kind of sees God as like the bad guy and then sees the idea of like a pagan principle of like, oh, yep, the universe was good to me today. I must have been good. So it's a transactional, like Greek God way of looking at life. Like
Yeah.
if I put in good stuff into the universe, then good stuff is going to come out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you think that there's something to be said too about like even in Christianity, the way that we, like certain denominations will believe in prosperity gospel? Have
Yeah.
you seen that come out?
I've heard of that. Yeah, where like if you put in the work and you believe in God, then he will give you good things.
If I'm a good person, then I'm going to be rewarded a nice jet plane. Figure that one out, right?
Yeah.
But if we're really looking at the beauty of Catholicism, Catholicism is intertwined with the cross. And what is the cross? We look up at Jesus, not removed. Catholicism, we don't take Jesus off the cross. Jesus has risen from the dead, but we as Catholics understand what's the message behind it is that Jesus paid the debt for our sins. He died for us. He entered into the most brutal suffering that mankind could ever experience. And that doesn't mean that suffering is going to go away for
Yeah.
us. We too are going to have to suffer.
Yeah.
And as much as we may ask God, God, take this cup away from me, just like
Yeah.
Jesus asked in the garden,
hmm
what do we say to that loved one who just lost their children in the Texas floods last weekend?
Yeah.
What do we
Yeah.
say to that person who just lost their friend to cancer?
Yeah.
Where is God there? Job asked that question because he was a good person. He
hmm
did everything right. Well, why did bad things happen to him?
Right. Yeah.
And it's the question of suffering. And there's really no answer that's going to completely satisfy and give us a good feeling. I heard Patrick Madrid talking about this, and he was right that like sometimes there is no answer other than
Yeah.
just looking up at the cross.
That's the answer right there, just the cross. I think every day I pray like, Lord, help me turn to the cross in all difficulties because that is the ultimate difficulty. And Jesus even tells us in Matthew 16, those who want to follow me must take up their cross. And so when we look to the cross, we can see that love that Jesus has for us. And we can know that the suffering we're going through, we can give that to him and unite that to his cross.
And you're really good at doing this every morning through a morning offering. So what does that involve? And do you feel like God meets you in that offering every day?
Yeah, it's to unite everything to Jesus, unite all my joys, hopes, sufferings, and give it to Jesus and unite it to him and ask him to redeem all of it and unite it to him on the cross, especially at the sacrifice of the Mass.
This idea then, babe, of realizing that we can't actually escape suffering. We have to learn to trust through suffering. We
Yeah.
can't wish our way out of it. We have to trust through it.
Right. Yeah, it's true. And there's no shame in praying for it to go away. Like you said, Jesus even prayed that God the Father would take away the cup. But he also said, not my will, but your will be done. And that is how we should approach suffering. When we're going through something difficult, we can ask God to take it away, but at the same time, trust that even if he doesn't, he has a greater plan. And Jesus picked up his cross and he was crucified, the most horrible death. And, you might be really suffering with something and you might be asking God to take it away. And maybe he hasn't. But that suffering that you're going through, if you unite that to Jesus and what he went through and his sacrifice, that can be redeemed. And that can have a lot of spiritual richness to it. When you offer that up for someone else, that can make a difference. We offer up our suffering for other people all the time.
You have a share in the cross that Jesus carried. And And just as Simon helped Jesus carry his cross, Jesus is carrying that cross with you. And, sometimes I think we try to escape by turning to illicit substances. We try to drink our way out of it. We try to forget it.
Yeah.
And even through good experiences, things that aren't necessarily sinful. Like an example,
Yeah.
Kathy and I, we were just getting so stressed out a few weeks ago. We decided to take a trip to Nashville, and in the back of our minds, we're thinking, oh, this is just going to be like a weekend getaway for us. Like we're just going to have no cares in the world. Everything is going to be
Yeah.
great. And it was a good
It
time.
was
Love
fun.
Nashville.
Yeah.
But before we even got on the road, babe, like we noticed that the rental car we got had like low tire, like
The low air
the low air
pressure.
pressure.
Yeah.
So we right away we had to like take it to Jiffy Lube, and I'm like, what? This isn't a good start. And then Sunday morning, you wake up and you're completely dehydrated for some reason.
Yeah.
Like you could barely even get out of
Yeah.
bed, and you're like, babe, I don't know if I can do anything today. I'm like, what? And like all of a sudden, I was getting selfish. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, like this was supposed to be our getaway. This was supposed to be our
Mhm.
escape. This was supposed to be our good time. And you said, brilliant comment. You said, well, maybe this is God reminding us that there's nothing in this world that can be an escape, but the only way is through it. The only way is saying yes to the cross and realizing that it's Jesus who's there holding you through it all. And going back to this Feast of the Sacred Heart last Friday, one of the things I loved learning is how Saint Therese of Lisieux, she practiced the little way of sanctity, saying yes to ordinary means of sanctity. And we know that she encountered a lot of suffering on earth, and she even said that her purgatory would be on earth, living in the Sacred Heart of Jesus, saying yes to Jesus burning away her imperfection. And how does he burn away? It's through his love. So when we're met with what seems like a lot of harsh realities in this world, if we turn it around and say, well, this is Jesus purifying me, this is Jesus making me more like him, this is him holding me in his heart,
Yeah.
we say yes to that invitation of love. It doesn't make it easy, but it makes it worth it. Now, this doesn't mean that we're not going to be or that we're not supposed to be happy on earth.
Yeah.
There are so many blessings that we're meant to experience on earth. But what does this mean? It means that the choices we make and the way that we respond to our suffering does make a difference.
Yeah.
How do you cope? What do you turn to? Where do you turn? Who do you talk to? It's those choices that will lead you to eternal happiness with God. And it's your choice. We can be bitter. We can turn in on ourselves and refuse to turn to community, refuse to turn to God, see God as this angry person who's just going to punish us and wants us to be miserable. Or we can trust him that if he even allowed his only son to die on the cross, if he actually did it out of love, maybe he's allowing us to be purified too. And maybe he knows better than we do. We just have to trust that we don't know. And the universe may not always seem like it's on our side, but God is always on our side, and he is always for you.